Hi, and welcome back. This is Rob Anspach with another edition of E-Heroes. Today, E-Hero is Pam Prior, and we're going to talk about how to make finance fun. Now, that kind of sounds silly, because to me, finance is not fun, but Pam is going to help shed some light on that. So, welcome.
Thank you so much. I sure hope to. How are you?
Good. We're in the same state, Pennsylvania.
We are different ends, but the same state. Yep.
Yeah. So, this is kind of cool. I mean, we can talk about the governor, but I think everybody hates him. So we're going to talk about finance
All right.
and
Because everybody
everybody.
loves that.
Yeah. So all you entrepreneurs out there, and I know that some of you are already cringing because we're going to talk numbers, but it's very important that as an entrepreneur, you understand your numbers. So, we're just going to jump right in. Pam's going to just throw some stuff at you, and hopefully something sticks in that noggin.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's interesting. So, I kind of think of businesses. You can think of them in three pillars, four pillars, five pillars. Whatever you want. But I think about three pillars. You kind of have the operation stuff, which is how you serve your clients. So you're really good at that. That's easy to pay attention to. You know how to do it. It's your superpower or special sauce or whatever you want to call it. And then there's this other third that is the marketing stuff, which is, the sexy stuff like you do, right?
Mhm.
And then there's this third
Sexy,
thing,
but that's what I do.
but it always sounds a lot sexier than finance.
Mhm.
And then there's this third thing that people kind of look at and go, yeah, that's right. There's finance. And like I like to call them the 67% CEO because they're rock solid on those two pillars and just avoid this third pillar for all sorts of reasons. But kind of in talking to so many people about this, I've really broken the reasons down into four categories. And that I think might be the simplest way to sort of dive into this because it, it's the path. Dealing with these four categories and the way out of them is kind of the path to getting to where, oh, maybe finance could be fun. If I do my job talking to you here today, by the end you'll not say finance is fun, but you'll be going, well, maybe. Um, so the first two are really mindset things, and the biggest one, Rob, I mean, is shame. Right? Every single entrepreneur I've talked to has said, I'm really embarrassed to tell you this, but blank, right? What I know unequivocally, because I've done this a million times, is that every listener right now is filling in that blank for themselves and thinking that they're the only one filling in the blank. And what's really happening is however many people are listening to this are filling that blank in. And the reality is we're so ashamed to talk about finances, but it's not an issue that only some people have. It's not this embarrassing story out there that you've got. Number one, it's probably not really embarrassing because you didn't grow up to be a finance specialist. Nobody taught us this stuff in school. Nobody. You couldn't take a even manage your checkbook class really when I was in school. So number one, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. But the second thing is once you start to know that literally everybody in the room, whether it's the $8 million or the eight-figure successful guy you've been following on the internet forever, or the pre-funding startup person who has no clue about money, everybody's got that story. So I kind of take that shame mindset piece and just ask that everybody, let's just put that aside for purposes of this discussion. So that's my only solution to shame is let's just pretend it doesn't exist for purposes of this call because everybody's got that thing. So at least we're on an equal playing field, even if we are dealing with shame. The second real mindset thing is fear. And the way I describe fear, and I don't know how you think about it, but it's fear is almost always of the unknown. If you actually know what you're facing, you get into adrenaline mode and you deal with it, right? It's not the tiger I'm scared of, it's worrying that the tiger's coming that I'm scared of. Once the tiger's actually there, I'm not scared, I'm just fighting.
Right.
So I don't know if you're familiar with the game Shoots and Ladders.
Hmm.
I used to play that. I guess in
Oh,
Canada,
I still do with my grandson.
yeah, in Canada they call
And
it
he
Snakes and
cheats. Yeah.
Ladders, which I can't imagine a snake on that board. That would be a little freaky, but but Shoots and Ladders. And The game Shoots and Ladders, you know it. If you're playing it with your grandsons, you roll the dice, you have no idea where you're going to land next.
No,
And
I don't,
sometimes
but he
you,
does. He makes up his own rules.
well, see, he's a born accountant. Then I think we need to talk to him. We definitely need to talk to him. But you're rolling. This is what it's like when you ignore finance. You're kind of rolling the dice, and you may walk right by an opportunity to get on one of those ladders and shoot straight to the top, or you might hit right at the top of one of those slides and end up at the bottom.
Mhm.
And the fear is you have no idea if you're rolling dice what it's going to be. So the tool that we put in place that sounds official, but it's really very easy to get your hands around, is a forecast. And one of the things I'll do, Rob, remind me when we get to the end of this, but I'll give you something to put in the show notes where people can go get a very simple in English forecast that they can do for themselves personally or in their businesses. And the cool thing about this model is that I I built it with people in a Fortune 50 company. I've
Mhm.
used it in $300 million businesses, and it applies to all the entrepreneurs I'm working with now who range between 5 and 8 figures. So it's a very straightforward tool and a simple tool, but it works no matter what your business size is. So we'll put the link in the show notes for that because I think
Mhm.
it's very useful. Um, but that forecast is what takes all the fear away because all of a sudden now, if I'm looking out whether it's 12 weeks or 12 months, I can now see what's coming. I can see, for example, oh, shoot, if I hire that person in February, I'm going to have to call on my credit line in March or I
Mhm.
run out of money in April. So let me think about shifting things a little bit. All of a sudden, you can see those shoots and stay away from or prepare for them and you can see the opportunities and go, heck, I know I want to go to that conference because I'm going to meet 6 potential clients. So I want to make sure I build up the funds to get there and catch that ladder when it comes to me.
Mhm.
And that's what removing that fear does is, and the way you do it is just to create the line of sight into what's ahead of you. And you do that with the forecast. So that's kind of the second thing, the two mindset things. Shame and fear. So shame we just put on the shelf because it's an equalizer, and fear we deal with the forecast. And then there are a couple of practical things that stop people from dealing with finance. And the first is overwhelm.
Mhm.
It's like if I try to do marketing, right? If I try to figure out how to do marketing, I see this plethora of stuff I can do, and there's an order I need to do it in, and there's tech to buy, and there's all these things. There's strategy, there's tactical, and oops, hang on, that's my puppy.
Right there's tactical.
That's tactical. Hey guys, who wants a treat? Come here, I'll bribe you. Come get a treat. We'll give it a shot. It's always worth a shot. So what I find is that um, the overwhelm is just like overwhelming anything else for anything else. You just need to break it down into some steps.
Mhm.
And we break it down into steps with a very easy process that is just separate. That it's basically it's S.O.B. Sorry about that, but separate, organize, business model. Because the really cool thing about finance, and this is what makes it fun, is that if you do these three things, and that's all bookkeeping and accounting is separating, organizing, and aligning it to a business model. Because if you do it right, your finances and what you see. Oh, you have to edit there. That's the dog walker.
That's all right.
All right, hang on. There you go. I think that's the dog walker. All right. Yep. Hang on. Let's give it a second. Had to happen that today was the early day. All right. I think they're done barking. I'll circle back. Where do you want me to pick up? Just with
Uh,
start with overwhelm again?
yeah, just SOB. That was fun.
Okay, yeah. So overwhelm is really resolved by a three-step process, and that this three-step process is all that accounting and finance is. It's S.O.B. Couldn't come up with a better one than that, but it's separate, organize, and business model. Separate, organize, and business model. And what we do with that is create the information that we need. It's taking all that stuff that we've been fearing and avoiding, putting it in the right spots so that all of a sudden it becomes the lens that lets you see the blood flowing through your business model.
Mhm.
So you have money, you spend money to get some stuff, you do some magic with the stuff, you spit it out in a different form and people buy it. All that finances do is let you see how much blood is flowing through each of the parts of that equation. And it can verify for you very quickly, hey, oh, now I understand how the lifeblood of my business works. And it's not just this money thing, it's energy, just like your time is energy, and your emotions are energy, and your money is energy. That's all stuff you're putting into the business. And this is when we can really get a good line of sight on. And by separate, all we mean is, and I just advise anybody with the business, and there are 5-figure businesses and 9-figure businesses I've had this conversation with, believe it or not, one 9-figure business. Get your business and your personal account separate.
Hmm.
Just separate them. There's a psychological advantage to it. All of a sudden, you feel like a business and not a hobbyist. But there's also just some very practical reasons to do it because it sets you up to be able to use the information in your business now. The second thing is organize it. Organizing really, here's the magic trick to what bookkeeping is. All bookkeeping is a mapping table. All we're doing with bookkeeping is taking all of the transactions on your bank statements and credit cards, running them through a mapping table and saying, hey, here's what this tells us about your business.
Hmm.
And saying, hey, you've got this much you're spending on this much you're making, etc. And the cool thing about that is once you've done that once, and go ahead and get yourself a bookkeeper to do it if you don't like doing bookkeeping. The alternative is those boxes in the closet that have all the receipts, or the piles of paper you have on your desk where you've tried to scribble things down. Get a bookkeeper, have them do it once for you, and maintain it even just quarterly. Even just quarterly can be enough for you to take a look at a couple of key things, I can tell you what the key things are to look at. But once you've done that, once you've organized it in a way that now makes sense to you, don't accept any report from a bookkeeper or an accountant where you look at it and go, these numbers make no sense to me.
Hmm.
Because that feeds into the fourth issue, which is your time, right? So we've dealt with shame, fear, overwhelm. Now let's talk about time. You don't have time to look at something that doesn't make sense when you're an entrepreneur. And you have some really good gut feelings about your business. I'm betting you know pretty much back of the envelope how much you're making, how much you're spending, and you have a way of thinking about that. And it's remarkably accurate. If you've been running a business, it's remarkably accurate. So for some reason, bookkeepers go ahead and keep the books for the tax accountant. So that when you see it, what you're getting is a report that's written for a tax accountant. No wonder it's a waste of time. There's no way for you to reconcile that with what's actually happening in your business in your mind. So the reason I say business model in the S.O.B is whoever's doing your bookkeeping and accounting for you should understand how you talk about things. And here's a quick tip for anybody who's looking for a bookkeeper or an accountant. When you're on the phone interviewing them, and then you hear them say things like, let's say just as an example, they say, hey, yeah, we capture your revenue and your COGS and your fixed costs and tell you what your net income is on a P&L every month. Go back to them and say something like, oh, okay, so you capture my sales and tell me what I spent to generate them, and then my SG&A, just whatever you happen to call them, and see what they say back to you. And this is such a simple trick, but if they say back to you the same thing they said the first time and don't change their language to match yours, call the next bookkeeper. Because there is no reason you have to conform to somebody who's providing you a service.
Right.
Because that's what makes these things valuable. The other thing you want to make sure of, numbers on a piece of paper don't make sense by themselves, but put them in context, now they tell a story, right? You're a storyteller, Rob. Like one of the things you said to me when we were talking earlier is, I write in a way that's very conversational.
Hmm.
Any report you look at for your numbers should be very conversational, should tell a story. And there's two contexts that all of a sudden make this dead piece of paper into a story. One is you put it in the context of time. So have your bookkeeper give you reports that show you what's happening in your business over a period of time. All of a sudden, when you look at that, you can go, oh, that tells me what's been happening in my business now. Yep, I remember I changed my price there. I
Hmm.
remember I took vacation there. And any number you look at in your head, you should be able to translate into a business lever you can move, right? So if you look at a piece of paper and it's just numbers, throw it away. If you look at a piece of paper and say, oh, wow, if I change my price here or increase my marketing spend here or save money here, this is what's going to happen in my business. Now it's a storyteller. Now it's information you can use to make decisions. Now it starts to get fun because the other thing we do once we have that kind of history and we're looking at the trends is we have enough to look forward. And it gets much easier. That word I used earlier that a lot of people cringe at, forecast, it gets much easier to think, oh, I can see what's happened. I now know everything that drove all of those things on that piece of paper. Yeah, I can go ahead and predict what's going to happen for the next 12 months.
Mhm.
And what you've created there, then, that forecast is expectations. It's the context of expectations. So the second thing you want to look at with your numbers every month is how you actually did versus what you thought you were going to do.
Mhm.
But again, only in the context of business levers. So what? There's a variance of $70,000. Well, it matters if you can take that and say, oh, yeah, that's 10,000 things I didn't sell for $7 each, or 10 things I didn't sell for $7,000 each. Those are two very different stories. But if the books are presented to you in a way that you can relate to it, you can now extract the stories from those statements.
You know, I was on a church finance committee for 7 years,
Uh-huh.
and
Fun times, been there myself.
yeah, it was you know, I think swimming through a pool of razor blades would have been more pleasant. But I learned why I shouldn't have been on there for 7 years, and probably should have said adios after 6 months, is because they were so set in their ways. They were so set in, using this 20-year-old program that didn't have half the stuff that it needed. And every time I would say, look, you need to add this, 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 and this, and they're like, well, that doesn't work with the program. I said, well, where does the information kicked out from that program go? Well, it goes up to another church. I said, well, what are they using? Oh, they're using an up-to-date program. I'm like, you know what? Get up to date.
It's so true. I was a finance chair for myself for, well, multiple years in a couple places, but one place for 4 years. And by then I was smart enough to know that the first thing I did was poll the finance committee and poll the vestry and say, what are the decisions you want to make from this information?
Yeah.
And once we had that, then I pushed back down through the bookkeeping system and said, here's what we're going to do now.
Hmm.
And you do get that resistance, but you really need somebody that's going to drive that team to do what you need. And it's not hard to do. It's just people aren't used to it.
Right.
Bookkeepers haven't been trained to do it.
Yeah.
Tax accountants haven't been trained to do it. A lot more of them are trying to now because they recognize that it's just a much more valuable service to an entrepreneur than just, oh yeah, I'll file your taxes for you, dude.
I in my prior company, I would look at my numbers probably every quarter.
Yeah.
Now I look at them, I glance at them at least once a week. I know exactly where I'm at, what the numbers say, and it tells a story. And if I need to up my rates, guess what? They're going up.
But it's
And
almost fun that way, right?
yeah, you have to. I
Oh,
mean,
you said it. You said finance was fun.
yeah, I know. It's
It was a trap.
it was a trap. The
A
whole
trap.
this whole interview was a trap. But see, that's the thing, is that once you understand the numbers, you find that the story it tells will reshape the way you do things. And
Absolutely.
it'll tell you whether or not you need to raise your rates, why you need to raise your rates. You know, who are your customers? What are their average ticket? Why you need to, bump them up a little bit. Why, all kinds of questions that you never thought to answer. Now you
Mm.
understand.
Yeah, and the if it's given to you the right way,
Yeah.
then you understand. One of the big ones you mentioned is if I get a client, what's the lifetime value of that client? Because some people will underspend on things like marketing,
Mhm.
not fully understanding because they think they're only making, a $1,000 sale when in reality that client stays with them for 4 years and then converts to another long-term program. That client value could be 30 or $40,000 over time, lead to other client. There's so many things you can now start to say, wow. And I guess the thing I really enjoy is watching the eyes open to somebody when they see that all this information can be twisted and put into
Right.
a language that makes sense.
And if you're a solarpreneur and you're doing all this work yourself, you'll realize that looking at these numbers, the story it tells, maybe you should go flip burgers at McDonald's because you'll make more money.
Oh my gosh. So great point. I just had, this is two different solopreneur stories. I'll leave the names out, but I had one
Share them.
who, leaving the names out, but one had revenue of 450,000, or will have revenue of $450,000 this year. And their net income, what's left at the end of the day, is going to be like $300,000.
Mm.
And she was upset. She's like, I'm only making $300,000. There are all these $1 million people out there, blah, blah. I said, let me tell you a story about $1 million client of mine. Yes, they make $1 million, but do you know what their net income is? It's $10,000. So you've got somebody pouring tons of money and energy and people into a machine and keeping $10 for themselves. You're pouring money and energy, or $10,000. You're pouring a lot less money and energy into a machine and keeping hundreds of thousands.
Mm-hmm.
And they went, oh, I didn't know that. Because all we ever talk about, while we're hiding our shame stories about money, all we're ever talking about is 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure.
Mm-hmm.
And I only use that language because people know it, but it has nothing, you put it so well, it has nothing to do with what's coming out the bottom. Flipping burgers could make you more money.
Yeah, it just and I look at a lot of these entrepreneurs and especially during COVID, they dropped all their rates in hope to get more clients,
Yeah.
and then they realized at the end of the day they just put in 80 hours for $10 an hour.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
the real underlying thing with this, Rob, is we're all in business for personal financial success. Now, we all define that differently,
Mhm.
okay? But even not-for-profits, and I work for a couple not-for-profits, are in business for personal financial success. That personal just happens to mean I want to have a foundation that does this thing, right? So, and if we look at the numbers and understand the business and how we can move the levers and get that $10,000 up to $200,000, even though we might still be a 6-figure business, that becomes money we can invest in that personal financial success. And that's why this is so important. I don't know anybody who's in business
Right.
to make the same money they make flipping burgers.
Yeah.
But it's happening out there because we're fearing and overwhelmed by and don't have the time to look at these numbers.
Oh, and instead of looking at the numbers, they say, well, we just got to get sales. Well, that's fine and dandy, but
Maybe.
I'm 51 years old and I want to retire at 65. So
Mhm.
in order for me to do that, I have to generate enough sales that I can put money into my 501k or 401k, into my investment, everything, so that when I retire, I have money. These
That
guys, these guys running a business aren't thinking about the long term. They're thinking about, oh, I need to make enough money to go buy a loaf of bread.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard. And it is hard. And the thing I think that is so hard for me about that is that just a tiny twist in how they're getting information would allow them to escape from that.
Yeah.
And yet my profession does not serve them in a way that lets them do that for the most part. That's what I'm out here to do. I'm out here to bang and scream loud enough till we change the world on that. But everybody who's taken the risk to do something with their passion that serves the world and gets them an income, and
Mhm.
yes, those two are 1000% compatible,
Right.
deserves to be building their own personal financial success this way.
Yeah.
And it's tricky because I see these hurdles and I know how people can get past them. I hope this has been helpful for them, and I really want people to take a look at the little forecast thing. It doesn't take but half an hour a week. First week takes half an hour. After that takes about 15 minutes. And what I can tell you unequivocally, although of course there's no guarantee, but this is a guarantee. If somebody does that exercise for 12 weeks, they will find money in their business.
Mhm.
I've done this now. Oh, I can't even count. It's easily in the high three digits of
Wow.
times with people. And never, ever once, not even once, have we not found something significant because it has you paying attention to the numbers in a way you haven't before.
Mhm.
And it's eye opening. And once you get that first little taste, it becomes addictive.
So where do they go to get that?
So I'll send you right after this, 2 ways they can do it. One is always email me at
Mm-hmm.
pam@prioritiesllc.com. That's PRIORITIESLLC.com. But the second is I will give you a link to put in the show notes that's a little longer and not as easy to roll off the tongue.
And I'll if you're watching this on video, I'll put that in there.
Awesome.
So, anybody seeing it on YouTube will get it. The people that are listening to it on audio through any podcast that you're on, um, I'll figure out how to get the link to you guys, or you can just
Or email me.
email Pam and get it. And
We manage every request that comes in. So
yeah.
just hit that email address and we'll take care of it
So
for you.
is there a website that they can go to learn more about you?
Yeah, Pam Prior, PAMPRIOR.com/speaker.
Speaker.
That's where the good stuff is.
So they don't want to go anywhere else. They just want the good stuff.
Yeah, they can go to just plain old PamPrior.com, but that's not the good stuff. That's just all the about page in that business.
So how did you get started in all this? I mean, because one day you woke up and say, you know what, I want to make finance fun. Nobody does that.
That's a great question. So I was in corporate forever. I was worked in Fortune 50 and then mid-market companies with both publicly traded private equity partners, venture partners. Worked myself up and to the CFO level there, and was doing that for 25 years. And in between some of those, I'd changed 3 or 4 times during that period, and I would always start working with small companies as a consultant, and looked at it as what I'm doing until I get my next real job.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got my last real job, and the minute I got in the door, it hit me. I loved the in-between work more than the quote unquote real job.
Mm-hmm.
So I stuck with that real job for a year to do what I'd committed to do. And then I said, nope, not doing it anymore. And folks started focusing on small businesses, did a couple startups, and, the whole investor seed money thing. And then just started to meet more and more fascinating people out in this world that we're all in.
Mm-hmm.
I know we share a few friends,
Yeah.
and realized how underserved they were.
And I
And
think I met you. I think I met you in at a speakeasy through
I
Steve.
think it was the Speakeasy. Yeah.
Was it the one in San Francisco?
It was either San Francisco or Nevada. I can't remember which. No, it would have been San Francisco.
San
It
Francisco.
would have been
Yes.
San Francisco. Yeah. So, yeah, and that's when I met Steve. Love him, and I realized that people were really frustrated about this. It's something they avoided, and just then over the last 6 years, I've just been on the rampage, speaking about it, working with clients, working with groups. And someday here soon, I'm going to change the world, Rob. Everybody's going to scream finance is fun.
Yeah.
But it was always fun for me because I just loved accounting. But what I loved more, I realized, was translating it into useful stuff, and even better, fun. I just can't. One of our company values is have fun. It's no good if you're not having fun. That's why I read your books.
And the whole thing is make what you do a story that people can relate to.
Yes.
And that's why one reason I write all these books is that so people can learn a little bit more about me, give them a reason to trust me.
Mm-hmm.
They get to know the real me, the real sarcastic me, and the majority of people who buy my books usually hire me.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
um,
I can see why.
I just try to be the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not out to scam anybody. People call me like the last Boy Scout. Um, but online I'm this curmudgeon. People are like, dude, smile. I smile. Come on, leave me alone. I'm an
I
old
don't feel like
man.
smiling.
But it's they know what they're going to get from me, and with you, you're creating that storyline from finance that people can relate to, and I think that's what really makes you an e-hero, because you're doing something that other people aren't doing, and you're doing it in such a way that instills trust, and people are
I
like,
hope
I
so.
feel comfortable with her.
Awesome. I hope that means a lot to me because that's the job. It's the job I love.
Yeah.
is making people feel comfortable with this. So I just appreciate getting to talk about it like uninterrupted for half an hour. My family would never let that happen.
Well, you had the dog, but
That
no
is
big
true.
deal.
That is true.
It's and we all work different schedules, you
Yeah,
know,
true.
but I believe that everybody should know what their numbers are because without knowing those numbers, you don't know the true story of or the potential of your company.
Hmm. In fact, you've given me a great marketing line. It's something with the flipping burgers. I'm going to be playing around with that. Could you be making more flipping burgers or something like that?
Yeah,
Um,
I'll help you on
so
that one.
thanks for that. You did. I just got free marketing.
So everybody who's listening, go to pamprior.com/speaker.
Mhm.
Learn more about Pam. Visit her on her Facebook or anywhere else she is, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. So that
Awesome.
what you
Thanks
guys
so
do.
much.
See ya.